Good Sunday morning, Northeast Ohio, as the dust continues to settle from that Friday bombshell from a federal court in Cincinnati that could reshape the state's political landscape. The three-judge panel ruling that the state's congressional districts were unconstitutionally gerrymandered and must be redrawn immediately. The plaintiffs in the case pointed to last November's elections when Republicans won 52% of the state vote but continued to hold 75% of the state's congressional seats. The numbers 2 years earlier were even more dramatic when the closest congressional seat was decided by 19 points, with all but 2 decided by 30 points or more. Outcomes that are the result of gerrymandering, the courts rule. They carved districts like Marcy Kaptur's, known as the Snake on the Lake, and Jim Jordan's, the Duck District, in case you didn't see it, in order to protect the Republican majority.
This map that we're currently under was drawn using computer technology where you can go down precinct by precinct, look at the voting patterns, the majorities that voted for Republican candidates, put them together in these districts, and then do the same thing to pack in those that were voting for Democrats.
The ruling will be appealed to the Supreme Court, but the High Court is already considering similar cases for Maryland and North Carolina, and last year refused to get involved when Pennsylvania was ordered to redraw its districts.
There's been a movement in legal circles towards courts getting involved in these cases, where before they tended to shy away from these unless there was explicitly an issue of race involved.
Former Governor Kosich has long pointed to gerrymandering as fueling the political divide in Washington.
All it does is drive people to the extremes. If you're a Republican, you worry about a primary from the right. If you're a Democrat, you worry about a primary from the left. And it just polarizes and pushes us out.
If the court ruling stands, voters in some districts in Ohio may face an interesting scenario should the state lose a congressional seat after the 2020 census.
You're essentially going to have people who voted in one district in 2018 might vote in another district in 2020 and might actually vote in a third district in 2022.
And the state wants to see those new congressional districts, possibly something like this, by mid-June. Well, yesterday was Kentucky Derby Day, and if you were out at Jack Thistledown or Northfield Park, you know the places were packed because horse racing is the only legalized form of sports betting in the state right now. So where do things stand with the efforts to legalize it in Ohio? We asked Governor DeWine about that as we sat down to first talk about his start in office. Looking back on that first 100 days, would there be a letter grade that Mike DeWine would give the DeWine administration?
No, I never think the students should give the grades. We'll let other people do that. The voters of the state of Ohio are the ones who have to determine how well we're doing. We put together, I believe, a very strong team, a very good cabinet. That was probably the most important thing that we did at start. We've dealt with the problem with our highway funding, not being enough money. We've dealt with that. So I'm happy to have that behind us, frankly, so we can focus on other issues. We presented a budget to the General Assembly that focuses on children, that focuses on early childhood development, focuses on the drug problem that we face, job training. General Assembly is working on that now. So I'm happy with where we are, but not satisfied. I am an impatient person, and there's things that we frankly need to be pushing hard for. I mean, one of the problems, I'm going to meet with the mayor. One of the things I'm going to raise with him is how we can be of more help in regard to, the whole issue of lead paint and lead poisoning. It may not affect a whole bunch of people, but it affects kids today. They're still being poisoned by it. We need to do a better job, frankly, from the state in helping the local health departments tackle this problem.
Like any governor, you come into office with balls in the air that you didn't throw there, but nevertheless you got to juggle them.
That's a good way of saying it.
And one of them would be sports betting. Do you have any preferences to who should be handling it, the lottery or the Casino Control Commission?
Well, as you know, one house has it, the lottery controlling it, the other house has the Casino Control Commission doing it. I had a meeting 4 or 5 days ago where I literally brought both into the office, and we talked about it, and each one kind of made a case for them being able to run this. I think it's something that is going to have to continue to be debated in the legislature. I'm going to continue to think about it, but that's really not the only question. We have other questions. One question is, are we going to allow people to be able to use their app to do sports betting? This is where clearly the future is. The question is, how can we make sure this is done correctly? When you're talking about the app, you worry about a couple things. You worry about a problem gambler. You know, this is addictive anyway, and you add to it the addiction that can hit people in regard to gambling itself. And so being able to go onto your app very quickly and do that time after time after time after time is something that we worry about problem gamblers. We also should worry about children. How do we make sure that we have built-in protection so that a 14-year-old doesn't pick that up and start gambling? You know, it's illegal to do, but if they've got an app and they do it on their iPhone, we have to figure out some way to protect that. So these are the kind of the big picture questions that the legislature and the people of the state of Ohio, frankly, are faced with now.
And with sports betting, Governor DeWine has always said it's not a question of if it's coming to Ohio, but when and in what form. Details that they're hammering out now. With Democracy 2019, I'm John Kosich. Enjoy your Sunday.